What's up, guys? We're back. The Bullpen Mafia back in the shadow of Lone Depot Park in Little Havana. Me and Toad. We got Petey in the Northeast as always. Boys, good to be back. Been
a week. You guys.
No, it's been more than a week. It's been 8 days since we last released our last episode.
Been nursing my Dontrell Willis hangover.
Yeah, we've been nursing the D-Train. If you have not checked out that episode with D-Train, I think the three of us are still buzzing. It was awesome. We got D-Train for about 45, 50 minutes of uninterrupted, just tremendous content. D-Train was more than we could have expected, I think, right? I think beyond what we even could have expected from D-Train, we got that.
We got it.
He was awesome.
And D-Train has his merch.
D-Train has his merch. We have not fully, we haven't.
What are you trying to say?
Has his merch. But USPS told Toad it arrived that we can't wait to see D. I mean, D-Train's been
that monster green hat will be on golf courses in the Phoenix area very soon.
Very soon. Hopefully going low. That's the most important thing.
He always goes low, bro.
Yeah.
You could tell his game's for real. Hater said his game's for real too. He actually said that to me. He goes, "Hey, if there's one thing, or if there's you ever get a chance to play golf with D-Train, you got to do it. The guy's a riot, an absolute blast on the course." So D-Train, if you're listening, which I know you are, when the boys get out to Scottsdale, let's get on the course and then do some other things at night.
I'll drive the cart.
By that time, maybe Toad will have a starter set of clubs. Who knows?
No, I'm telling you, I'm sticking with the shtick that I'm not a golfer. I can't at this point. I can't.
Okay. Petey,
we'll
have D-Train to ourselves.
I'll spend some time with the cart girl. That's fine.
That's fine.
Cart girl and Toad, D-Train and the guys. Totally okay.
We did send D-Train a little bit of everything of our merch. I got the blue New Era hat on. Petey's got the blue New Era on. We sent him our green Imperial hat, which seems to be the fan favorite. I know D-Train will definitely use that on the course. That is the golfer style hat. But if you haven't gone to our website, Toad's going to link it. Check it out on our Shopify. We got all the goods for you. We had a good weekend, Toad. Petey, look at this. Look, I mean, dude, we don't know who Toad is a fan of anymore. It's every week it changes. Look at this guy.
Cubs, go.
Dude, he was singing the song.
Chicago, what do you say? The Cubs are gonna win today. Go, Cubs, go.
The Wrigleyville hat, too, dude. Like, come on, Toad.
Look,
figure it out, dude.
We had a tremendous weekend. Shout out to our boys Sam Abrams and Otis Canes, two Canes legends.
Let's say their titles, because I mean, Petey, we were sitting with some head honchos.
You guys had some good seats, boys. Those were some good seats.
Sam is baseball ops, doing a lot of professional scouting, and Ryan Otero is the director of pitching. So we were sitting with some dudes. Okay, it's like we're getting the inside scoop on the Cubs organization with these two. I'm not going to say exactly what we talked about, but let's say we weren't surprised by one of the headlines this morning from Chicagoland. It was awesome. It was a great experience. Obviously, these two guys have been with the organization a little bit. Sam, like I said, works in the front office. So, Ryan Otero, basically, he's their pitching guru. I mean, Petey, you want to talk about geeking out about baseball? We were Saturday night walking through downtown Chicago. Otero's showing me arm slots. We're talking about sweepers. Like, we're crossing the street. Toad's calling me a geek. Like, we're talking about pitch design. Like, we had a full-on baseball weekend, and my first time watching a game at Wrigley, surpassed my expectations. It was unreal. My first time there since 7th or 8th grade. I had to fact check with my parents, but Petey, we are immensely jealous of you that you get to experience the equivalent of Wrigley Field, which is Fenway, but there's only one
redheaded stepbrother, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. There's only one way I could describe what Wrigley was like walking out of the concourse into the lower bowl, the seating area. It is the Disney World of baseball. Everything is pristine. Everything is clean. The focus is all about baseball. From a branding perspective, everything is super consistent. It's the green lettering on the white lettering on the green walls. The ivy is perfect. It's the greenest grass you've ever seen. It's obviously outdoors. It's just baseball in the way that it's meant to be consumed. And I think it really transforms your experience. You're there, yes, for the baseball game, but all these little things that they consider for the fan experience at Wrigley, pun intended here, they knock it out of the park. It's was fantastic. We got our souvenir sodas. We got our chicken tendies. The only red flag there, no honey mustard in Wrigley Field. Don't know how, but
Toad, you know what you sound like right now?
what? A Cubs fan?
Well, yes. Two, you're the owner's dream. This is exactly what it sounds like in Boston, right? The guys that visit Fenway. Because you know why, Toad? Because of you, they don't got to spend as much money in the offseason because you're going to go to the park either way. You're going to be buying jerseys. You're going to be soaking it in. And then you know what? You're okay with the 500 ball club. You're okay with the team that's not going to play in October.
My team is 30 games under 500.
Who's your team, Toad? What do you mean my team?
Okay.
You don't have a team.
Touche.
Okay.
Three teams ago.
But hear me out.
Okay.
The Cubs are they are in the wild card hunt, but they are underperforming a little bit this season, and the place is still completely packed. Yes, we did go to a weekend game. Yes, the team visiting was the Blue Jays. Who knows how often they go to Wrigley? Probably once every 4 years, something like that. I'm not speaking to, or I'm not meaning to glaze the Chicago Cubs organization and their ownership group for transforming Wrigleyville. Check out the hat. I'm more so speaking to right now to Marlins marketing, Marlins ownership, to Sherman and his team, with the point that you can give people a reason to go to the ballpark that's outside of the baseball team. Right now, the Marlins are all about gimmicks. They're all about these silly parties on the field. I should have worn it today. I bought the SpongeBob jersey just to troll the Marlins. I should have worn it. Doing things like that are devaluing professional baseball. And I think, frankly, people are losing respect for the Marlins from that standpoint, from just a branding and marketing standpoint. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit for the Marlins to win people back, to feel involved with the organization that's outside of baseball. And for me, someone who doesn't give a crap about the Chicago Cubs. Frankly, I hate them. I love Steve Bartman. I love 2003. I love that my team went in there and has ripped out their hearts twice, even more recently in the COVID season. For me to walk out of there with the biggest baseball smile on my face, feeling like a little kid, holding my souvenir cup and wearing my Wrigleyville hat like I'm a lifelong fan, that says a lot. That says a lot about what a good experience at a stadium can do for you. And I am pleading with Sherman, the Marlins marketing team, whoever, to give me a reason to go 3 blocks away from where I am or where we are right now to go experience a Major League Baseball game. This is not high school baseball. We're not a AA, AAA team. This is the Miami Marlins. Give me a reason to attend a Major League Baseball game, regardless of how the team is performing on the field. Win me back. Bring back the teal. Bring back some of that get hooked Florida Marlins energy, and we'll go from there. And then we start winning. We need to re-energize the fan base, and coming back from Chicago, coming back from Wrigley, that's all I could think about is how much we're depriving the local fan base of what potentially could be a great time at a stadium.
Yeah, Pete, you got it made, bro. I mean,
boys, I'm still pissed off at Toad's rant. I don't know if you can see me shaking my head.
Petey, there's Ricketts was probably watching Toad with his binoculars. He's like, yep, he's going into the team. So, we got another one.
Yes, exactly. Because just real quick, Javi, I'm just going to touch on this fact. Like, Toad, exactly what you're saying is it couldn't be more opposite around here. And maybe it's the same in Wrigley amongst like real Cubs fans, not the guys that just bought the hat and drank the souvenir sodas. Okay. Like, we don't want, like, a lot of everyone's like, Fenway is an awesome place to go, right? I love bringing my son to Fenway. I kind of fall into this category right now. There's no doubt about it. But give me a better product on the field, right, that wants to bring me back for more. Like, I'm not a tourist. I don't care about going in and paying $7 for a hot dog and $12 for a beer, dude. Like, I don't care about I like the atmosphere. I don't care about it. I care about it because I want my son to grow up there and I want him to love it. But give me a better product on the field. Like, spend the money somewhere else, dude. I don't give a shit about the other stuff.
You see, Petey, that's where you're lucky, because we're not even asking for the better product.
You're
on
right.
the field,
You're
right?
right.
Like we're just asking to want to go to the stadium and experience baseball. And I told Toad when we were walking through the airport in Miami, I was like, damn, like it makes you, and not to be, super romantic, but it kind of makes you fall in love with baseball all over again. Because we went Saturday and Sunday. We went both days. We went to the park with no expectations of what was actually going to happen on the field, just because we wanted to be where the event was. And I think, in an event town in a big city, like getting behind a pennant race in baseball is special. And I think we experienced that at Wrigley.
Yeah, you're right.
We want that for the Marlins. We don't necessarily want pennant races. We would love a pennant race.
The Marlins have never been in a pennant race.
Right.
They've only been in wild card
Right.
races. And I'm not asking to be 30 games over 500. I'm asking, let's be like the Cubs. Let's be like,
We're so far away from that. So
and
just
that's what's exhausting. That's what is the most frustrating part of this. That look, if you can't do that part, let's do the other parts the best way we can.
yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
A way to connect with the fan base. And we've beat on this a lot, and we've been tough on the Marlins, but it's tough because
It's because we care.
We
care. It's criticism that's coming from a place because we genuinely care.
We love the Marlins, yeah.
I wouldn't say that anymore. I love the Mets. I love the Cubs.
The Brewers.
God.
I love the Brewers.
I can't wait till you come to Fenway, Toad. I really can't.
No, well, Javi and I agreed if we're rooting for the Red Sox, because if they
Playoff time?
host a wild card game, we are coming up.
Okay, I like that. Okay.
Petey, I got a new cup. By
Yeah,
the
you
way.
got the Stanley, bro. Is that like a
This is like a Fanly, dude. This is some Chinese knockoff, but
this is that fake Fanly. Okay.
Club Sport Champion. Want to give a shout out to the softball team, GFT. Actually it's tough for Toad right now because Toad's a taxi squad guy on this team, bro. Like doesn't get a jersey, doesn't get the full call up.
Doesn't get the pub. He doesn't get the pub.
No, I get the text 1 hour before first page. Hey, Toad, are you available?
That's
we'll
awesome.
say Toad plays hard. Toad plays really hard.
I like that.
There's we're calling Devin Parra directly out. We're going to look directly into the camera. Devin Parra, we're calling you out. The organization is flailing. He's put some different people in charge. It's, just the way I see it, this was his last hurrah. He got the championship. He got Lord Stanley. He's riding this high horse. Reality's about to hit him in the face. I don't think he realizes yet. But Devin, we got to shift the organization a little bit. That's all we're going to talk about softball.
We're ready to sponsor the team.
We're ready to put Mafia on the arm.
I like it.
Boys, we are creeping up on best time of the year, football season.
I agree.
Toad sitting in a Canes studio right now. We got the Nolies this weekend playing in
Week
Dublin.
zero in Dublin.
But I think, from a professional standpoint, Petey, is there QB controversy in Foxborough, bro?
So I don't know if it's a quarterback controversy, Javi, as much as it is like that. You watch that preseason game too, and it's like Jacoby Brissett goes out there and he plays almost the whole first quarter, and it's almost like Patriots, probably ownership, coaches, fans, everybody's sitting there, and it's like, are we really gonna do this, man? Like, are we really gonna go 2-15? Are we really gonna go 3-14? Like, or are we overplaying this whole Mac Jones first couple of weeks of camp? Is he a number 3 pick? Is he is he truly what we want him to be? I think the ghosts of Mac Jones are so, they're flying over Gillette on a daily basis now, right? Nobody wants you can't have Drake May come in and do what Mac Jones did, and I think that's the biggest fear. Now, if it had been a transition, if there were a better transition, if Brady had still been there, if Drake May was Mac Jones from 3 years ago, I think he's starting, no doubt about it. I just think it's like Jacoby Brissett. He is what he is, man. Right? He's probably a great locker room guy. He's probably, he's great with Drake May. He's great with the young guys. But again, we know what we're getting from him, right? You're getting a 4-win season probably. And with Drake May, he plays pretty good the other night. There's a chance you throw that guy out there and he plays well, and maybe, obviously the whole organization, the whole outlook changes. I think the only thing, Javi, that's holding everything back is what happens with the offensive line. Because you can't go out there and get the kid killed, or you can't go out there and kill his confidence early, because that's it. You could always start Brissett and go to May. You can't start May and go to Brissett. If you're going to start him, you got to go. Yeah, but I think you start him. So
I think what you said kind of encapsulates where you are with your sports, right? Like you want winners.
Yeah.
The Pats are in a position where they're probably going to be the bottom feeders of the AFC, right? I mean, I think they're probably looking at 2026-ish. They're saying like, that's when we're going to start competing. Let's load up draft picks. They've kind of, Matthew Judon trade this week was obviously big news in Foxborough. So you got to imagine there's a lot of conversations and Bill ain't around anymore, Petey. I mean, the sensei guru ain't around to make the big decisions and hey, I'm not complaining, right? I'm as a Doll fan,
all is right.
All is right, baby.
Yeah, I mean, but like again, I think a lot of the heartburn around here, right, comes now from like, you go out, you get Drake May, you get Jalen Polk, like you get some playmakers, but it's like the offensive line has been an issue the last 2 or 3 years. So again, that's what scares me, because I think you saw it with Mac Jones, is it's like inconsistent offensive line play. And this guy just never gets the confidence to go out there and do it. If that happens to Drake May right from Jump Street here we go again, Javi. You think like now it's 2027, now it's 2028. You know what I mean? Like it's a vicious cycle. But
is this a Patriots fan complaining about potential rebuilds?
Yeah, Petey, piss off. You got 6 rings, bro.
Yeah,
we want to win a playoff game.
Yeah.
Look, Toad and I don't ask for anything, bro. We're asking for, hey, make this stadium a little bit more enjoyable for fans. Maybe win us a playoff game.
We got a lot of.
Like, I want winners. I don't care what the atmosphere is like.
Yeah,
and I don't.
got a couple trophies and
we got a couple Lombardis back there.
Behind us right there. Yeah, so Petey, so we like it.
Our Dolphin situation. Definitely took a,
quite the random headline.
Kerosene to the fire this week.
Yeah, a random headline on a Monday during training camp preseason.
Unbelievable stuff. I mean, from our perspective, it was something that had kind of been unsaid for a while, and we're talking about Tua finally speaking out about Brian Flores. Obviously, they had a checkered relationship, which is probably putting it pretty lightly. Tua was on the Le Batard show, gets asked about Brian Flores, and kind of opens up Pandora's box. And I don't know if anyone was really ready for it. I don't know if anyone was anticipating the reaction from Tua, but it certainly was a soundbite. Toad and I were talking off air before this, but I think there's several different things that you want to unpack. And I think from our perspective, Tua's our guy, he's our quarterback. So like this was obviously really weighing heavy on him, and it had to have been some sort of relief to get it off his chest. I don't know if the forum was correct, and that's what Toad wanted to speak to a little bit, was like, was this the right way to kind of go about this? And we had this in baseball, right? When we talked about Jazz and Miguel Rojas. Is this the time right before your season to kind of unleash all this stuff?
Working for the Dolphins and having some NFL experience, I know how tactical and calculated these PR teams can be. So when I saw the headlines and the videos on Twitter and Instagram, I was shocked because the interview occurred at the Dolphins facility. They had Le Batard and Stu Gatz come to the Dolphins facility to have this interview. So my point is, Dolphins PR is clearly in on this. This is something that seemed somewhat premeditated.
Wow.
And the timing just feels very odd. You're going into a season for Mike McDaniel and Tua with very high expectations. Tua just got the bag. He got the extension he was waiting for. The Dolphins are riding high. Down here, they're expected to, if not win the AFC East, but to compete for it. And now you're going into the second week of the preseason with this headline lingering over the team. Tua's going to have to answer questions about this in his next press conference. Brian Flores already did. I just don't understand the value or the reason of doing this at this point, right before the season starts. Because if your goal was to prop up what McDaniel has done for Tua, I think you could have done that without even bringing up the Brian Flores part of all of this, right? If you want to celebrate how good you guys have been together, focus on that. What part of this is successful that you're arguably like bringing down Brian Flores for what he did? Brian Flores, in his defense, did a solid job with the Dolphins. Did they win a playoff game? No, but neither has Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel's teams have crumbled at the end of seasons and these cold weather games and playoff games. I know the first one was with a backup quarterback, but last year they stood no chance in Kansas City, and they had to win one game to win the AFC East. Nobody's talking about that, right?
Right.
But now everything's under a microscope, and the timing is just very, very odd. It's a massive distraction now, at least in my eyes. And the fact that the Dolphins, again, are seemingly in on it. It's just super bizarre timing. I don't know I really don't understand what the end goal was from that bit of the interview.
I think that's all super. Everything's a fair point that Toad just made. I think Toad's experience in the organization and working various media teams, he knows how this stuff goes down. So like from that perspective, to his point, I don't understand why, I don't know if it was Tua or whoever it was decided to go down that route and be like, hey, this is the time we're going to air this out. Again, there's a lot of positive momentum for the Dolphins. Tua got a big contract. Tyreek Hill got a big contract. Jalen Waddle got a big contract. Cornerstones of your franchise going into
everything is trending up.
Right.
No one even remembers the Tua Brian Flores era. No one's thinking about that. No one's talking about that. Flores is in the NFC North, the defensive coordinator of the Vikings. You never even play them.
Right.
Why are you talking about this right now? It's just bizarre. If Tua really needed to get that off his chest that badly, that's fine. Save it for an off-season podcast after they win the division, or fingers.
Save it for this podcast.
Save it for the Mafia. Yeah. Come on, brother.
We'll talk about it.
I took a different spin on it, and I think from my perspective, what I saw was, look, if this was really going down, and we don't know, I think there's probably three sides to this story, right? There's Tua, there's Flores, and there's probably the truth somewhere in the middle. If your franchise quarterback really feels that dejected, that showing up to the building every single day, seemingly understanding that the guy in charge did not want him, did not have any sort of belief in him, did not necessarily think that they could win at a high level with Tua, that was, for me, that's a fireable offense on the spot for Brian Flores. Because I think in today's day and age, granted, Flores came from a coaching style of Bill Belichick where that works, right? Maybe it works for Belichick. He had Tom Brady, who was like a stalwart of consistency, accountability. Maybe that style of coaching worked for Bill and Tom. And obviously, it's very public now.
There's a 20-year age difference between Tua and Tom Brady.
Right, exactly.
These guys who learned how to play football under different styles of coaching. Even Saban has said that quarterbacks are the most important position. I really hear them out when I'm speaking with them. I don't know exactly what he said. I'm not going to put words in his mouth, but from my understanding, Saban admittedly was maybe a little softer on quarterbacks because he just knew the importance of the role they played in the offense. That's the one guy's confidence you can't shake.
Yeah.
For me, the Flores Tua era was while I was there. What does this say about the relationship Flores had with Chris Greer, the general manager? Because if you're treating a guy like that and you're that down on him, there's no way Flores wanted them to draft Tua. That was not his pick. And we know how he felt about Deshaun Watson, and that's who the guy he really wanted. I just
think you have a responsibility as a head coach. You're making the decisions for a group of 53 that have to buy into the quarterback. There's no way around winning in the NFL unless your quarterback is number one at the upper echelon of the league. Number two, he's got to be confident. And number three, he has to feel like the rest of the locker room has his back. People must have witnessed that. People must have seen like, hey, Flo has no belief in this guy. How are we going to get behind him? So, from where I see it as a former player, it's tough to have coaches, and it's very easy to tell when a coach doesn't believe in you. There's so many nonverbal cues. And I know, Petey, you're at the youth level now where, man, sometimes you just got to empower guys and you got to coach guys differently. You have to have the emotional intelligence to say, I'm not going to coach everybody the same. What lights a fire under Tua may not be the same thing that lights a fire under Tom Brady. And you need to understand that and sort of mesh that into your style, or else there's no way you're going to be successful. So, Petey, we've played with so many different coaches. The guys who empower you and make you feel good and confident, those are the ones that, you feel strong. And that's not to say you can't get coached hard, because you can get coached hard. There's tough love, there's tough critiques, but they're coming from a place of love and wanting you to get better.
Yeah, I always say, Javi, like especially these days, and I feel like I've talked about it a lot more since Belichick's gone. I just feel like today's coach at every level, you have to be relatable with the players, right? Like you have to be able to have some. And I'm not saying you got to be young, like. You don't got to hit the, you don't got to be able to hit the gritty in the locker room and do all these things. Like,
Pete, you're hitting the gritty though.
That's what I mean. But but if they want me to do it, man, I might have to do it. Like, I just feel like, going into the locker rooms now, you talk about like different players, the way they react to certain things. If you're relatable with these guys, if you're able to throw a hand over the shoulder, if you're able to take some time, walk around with them, figure out what makes them tick, what makes them feel better. I mean, that's these guys' job, man. And like, if you're going to be a hard-nosed guy and, hey, this is how I am, this is how I coach, take it or leave it. These days, man, a lot of guys are just going to leave it. And like today's kid, to these youth guys, like these guys, just everyone reacts differently now, man. It's like you have to be able to sort of find what works for these guys or find what works for your team. Be relatable to as many guys as you possibly can. But again, Javi, like you said too, be able to hear everybody out, man, right?
Yeah.
Like have an open door policy. Be able to let guys come in, air out their grievances, and then find what works for you guys. But again, I would say in today's world, in today's landscape, if you can relate to the player, if you can relate to what's going on in the world, if you can give people the forum and the platform to express themselves and be who they are, you're going to be successful.
We got one last thing before we leave this topic. We were mentioned at the top, we were with Ryan Otero. He's the director of pitching. He said a cool thing to us. We were having a couple beers and I was like, hey, what's your style with some of these guys? Like, how do you get pitchers to buy into your system immediately? And he's like, my success is their success. He goes, if they don't have success, I lose my job. And he's like, so that's my number one selling point is like, hey, I'm just trying to get you better. If you get to the big leagues, and we're talking about arbitration. He's like, if you get to arbitration as a minor leaguer, that means you've been in the big leagues for 3 full seasons, man. And I did my job because I evaluated the right guy. I got him better. So like, that's the kind of stuff that, man, there's good coaches out there. And when you have a good one, you realize you know it right away. Yep. I don't pretend to know a lot about the Brian Flores situation, but it was a hell of a lot of kerosene on the fire before the Finns kick off. We're going to talk about baseball. I think we talked about every other thing under the sun, but boys, baseball's having its moment right now. These playoff races are sick. I saw Jeff Passan tweeted yesterday, the top 12 teams in Major League Baseball are separated by 7 games. There is no team on pace for 100 wins. That would be the first time since 2014 we haven't had a 100-game winner. It seems like every big division is going to come down to the wire. The AL East, Yankees and Orioles separated by 1 game. The AL Central, the Guardians, Twins, and Royals by 2.5. The NL West, the Dodgers, Padres, and D-backs separated by 4 games. So, like, boys, every game has playoff implications. It is absolutely so cool to watch baseball right now.
It is the most obvious thing to say that we are coming up on the most important games of the season. But I think what's most important part of that formula is the team who gets hot now at the right time.
Yep.
That's going to be the team that's going to win the World Series. The team in these last 2 months that's going to catch fire and go into the playoffs rolling, look out. And
just got to stay healthy too, man.
Yeah.
Like some of these guys, I would say, Toad, that's the other, like you said about getting hot. I mean, what is it? What was the stat I saw today? Like the Orioles are down 5 starting pitchers now, dude. Eflin. I mean, it's just like you talk about the Yankees and Orioles, for instance, like 1 game that separates those guys. 2 unbelievable teams to watch, just, studs all over the field. But it's like, when you think about both of those pitching staffs, I know Cole's back now, but I mean, is Corbin Burns going to have to carry that staff now, right? You're going to have to piece this together here in the month of September and then see what happens, and hopefully you get healthy in October. I don't know. I mean, it is fun to watch though.
It's tough to even put your finger on it because the baseball season is such a long grind. It's so grueling. You're playing 162 games. The Dodgers were 9 games ahead of the D-backs and Padres 4 weeks ago. Okay.
Complacency will crash some of these teams.
But you look at what they've gone through, right? Mookie Betts was out an extended period. Freddie Freeman, unfortunately, he had some issues with his son. He was out an extended period. They got Tyler Glass now out. So, like, these guys are dealing with some serious injuries. And it's like the Dodgers are falling back, but the D-backs and Padres are absolutely storming. I mean, the D-backs are 21-8 since the All-Star break. They're playing the Marlins right now, so you got to figure. They won last night. They're winning tonight as when we started recording. So like, you start getting into these pockets of your schedule where you're like, holy crap, the D-backs might pull another, World Series runoff. And like,
yeah.
And this is going to sound insane, but the teams that get hot, do they really want to win the division? Because you get that cooling off period that you missed the wild card round. Right. The most valuable position in the MLB playoffs the top wild card spot, because you get to carry your momentum into the postseason. You're hosting the playoff series, and then you can ride that momentum into your divisional round against whoever it is you're playing.
Yeah, look, it's hard to say, because I think at the end of the day, if you feel strongly about your rotation, I know Petey touched upon the Orioles, like they're going through a bunch of injuries. They're not going to be able to set their rotation. So like the Orioles, let's say they win the AL East. Who's going to start game 1? Corbin Burns, but who's going to start game 2 and game 3, right? Like, then it really doesn't matter if you have home field advantage.
Trevor Rogers.
Exactly, right? It's so cool to see. And I think, the other race we're not even talking about is AL Central, which has been unbelievable.
Arguably the most entertaining of the three.
Royals are back. Kauffman Stadium is packed every single night.
Bobby Witt, baby. Pablo Sanchez.
Bobby Witt did hit a home run with a Pablo Sanchez.
He did. Off Nick Martinez,
and speaking of Pablo Sanchez, backyard baseball is making a comeback too, man. It really is baseball's year.
Petey, does Brady know backyard baseball? Like, there's going to be a cool moment for you. There's going to be like a 30-year gap between the last time you played backyard baseball and now your son's going to take it up. Like,
well, what's funny is he has no idea what backyard baseball is until Bobby Witt had the bat the other day, and then he's asking what it was. Dude, the bats this weekend between the Bobby Witt, Pablo Sanchez, the crayon ones now, dude. Tyler O'Neill swinging the purple pop. Rafi had like a red something. I mean, this is Players Weekend was fun to watch too, boys.
Now it's clicking in my mind that backyard baseball definitely reached out to Bobby Witt.
100%.
That as a teaser.
Wow.
With this
let's
announcement
get the best
today.
player in baseball. Yeah. Right. It had to.
Well, we were sitting at Wrigley and we were watching these guys, and it was funny because this guy Ernie Clement on the Blue Jays could not figure out which bat he wanted to use. First at bat, he goes out there with one of the player design ones, grounds out. Second at bat, he comes out with a regular black bat, grounds out again. Third at bat, crayon, whatever, pencil bat. He had the pencil one. So this guy, dude, he was 3 bats deep, but it was cool to see. I think Players Weekend, it's not as creative as it once was with the different uniforms.
Yeah, bring back the nickname jerseys, boys. What happened to those?
By the way, we got a good segment coming with Jacob Barnes on his nickname.
Yeah.
We go into his nickname, the King Cobra. I don't know if I like the nickname jerseys, but I think I miss them, dude.
Yeah, they should just sell them as jerseys, because if you sell a Cal Raleigh Big Dumper jersey, I'm ordering that as quickly as possible.
Toad. I agree.
Can we get Toad a custom Toad jersey?
That would be sick.
My birthday is tomorrow.
His birthday is tomorrow. August 21st.
33.
Wow.
Jesus, man.
So maybe we can get our friends at MLB and Fanatics. We love Fanatics. Fanatics is sponsor.
We'll be at we want to be at the fest next year, bro. We want to be at the fest.
We'll wear white. Toad will wear his jersey, his Toad jersey. The last Players Weekend, which kind of put the cherry on top of Players Weekend, was the game at Williamsport, Yankees and Tigers. And Toad and I were on the plane. We were watching the game, but I think that game is really cool, just in the sense like, man, Little League Baseball. I never got to play Little League Baseball. It wasn't a big thing down here in South Florida, but the little kids that are there, obviously you get a star like Aaron. The guy couldn't even walk off the bus, dude. Like he was getting mobbed. It was unbelievable to see Aaron Judge. Not the same kind of firepower with the Tigers. I mean, it was Tarek Skubal, but obviously Judge was the big celebrity there. He was the star of the show. And we had Jazz in the stands during the game, which is also very cool to see.
Big fan of Players Weekend. I don't know. It was not a great TV experience, the game itself.
Yeah.
It very much lacked atmosphere because it was like 8,000 people. But it is cool for them to make it about the kids. And Jazz, man, meant to play for the Yankees. It's just
he loves this, dude.
Yeah,
he does.
Guy's living he's on the IL and he's living his best life.
Dude, you see the icy watch he wore to the interview too? I mean, dude, he was looking good, man.
He knows what he's doing, bro.
He knows what he's doing.
Dude, imagine these 11, 12-year-old kids, like they got no idea. They're watching the AL Cy Young Award winner and then the AL MVP like literally go to battle, dude. Like I was watching the next day, DeRosa was breaking it down on MLB Network. Like Judge's only cool zone where he's like where his OBP isn't over 1,000 is like down and away, and the only change. So, dude, crazy stats about his batting average against left-handed pitchers and based off a pitch. Like obviously, you know, 4-seam, 2-seam, sweeper, curveball. Judge is hitting like 129 or something like that against a left-handed changeup, and like obviously Schoolball's changeup is just filthy. Dude, watching those at bats was like watching. Like, I don't know, like a math equation for fucking, you know, somebody at MIT. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like when I was watching that, Javi, I was seeing those what movie was it? The Hangover? Yes, I saw the equation going through how he was gonna do it. But I mean, those were like that was just like that was fun to watch those two at bats because you could tell that those two guys are so locked in. It's probably the first time that you saw Judge up there where it's like, hey, this guy's changeup's nasty. I'll probably get 6 or 7 in a row, which I think that he did. But the only fastball that he got, he obviously pissed on up the middle. But yeah, fun to watch that type of baseball.
It's again, baseball's having its moment. It was a great weekend for the game. We've talked about these races, the pennant races. The next 5 to 6 weeks are going to be unbelievable with what they're shaping up to be. Petey, the Sox have any juice left? Are they? You sticking a fork in them or?
I don't know, because again, it goes back, I think, to me, just what we talked about at the trade deadline was like, did you go out and make yourself any better, or did you go out and just, get a couple of relievers that have some big league experience that are just average guys? Like, you know what I mean? Like these guys, like Sims has been pitching in clutch spots. Like I watched him throw again last night. It's not, I still think that if they wanted to make a splash, if they were truly in on this team, that they would have gone out and maybe got one more starting pitcher. The starting pitching's been okay. I think you move some of those guys that are starters now into the bullpen if you went out and got 1 or 2 more big names. So again, as long as Toad's buying jerseys and paying for the stuff and loving the ballpark, we're going to continue to get these, just your run of the mill stock righties here coming out of the pen.
Toad, you send Toad to Fenway, dude. He's gonna have so much merch.
Sox Nation.
You send Toad to Fenway. We're gonna be like it's gonna be like Moneyball next year over here, bro. We're gonna, as like it's not already, but
man, we got one more little fun segment in the spirit of football season. The boys and we're gonna pick one major league player to be our franchise starting quarterback for our fantasy football team. So way we're thinking about this, one pick each. We're going to pick the baseball player that we'd want to be the quarterback of our football team. And I'm going to start with Toad.
That's good.
With the first pick of the Bullpen Mafia Baseball NFL Draft, Toad selects Bobby Baseball, Bobby Witt, now Bobby Football from the Kansas City Royals.
Yep.
He's a stud, freak athlete, face
Great
of a
pick.
franchise, MVP candidate. He would be the AL MVP if it was not for Aaron Judge having another historic season. He's got a great personality. He plays shortstop, so he's got a cannon of an arm. He's fast. He's top 5 in stolen bases. Great defensively. You got to think that translates to a little his neighbor at Arrowhead. Maybe Witt's got a little Mahomes in him. Going to be a mobile quarterback. You could see him turning those hips and firing a dart, on a 15-yard out route, firing it in the seam between the safeties. Bobby Witt, I think a no-brainer first overall pick here, and not to mention he's young too, so he's hitting his prime. We're going to get him cheap. He's going to be in his rookie deal. First 4 years, we could build around him. I really thought about this, you guys. I don't know what your picks are, but I highly doubt you put as much thought into this as I did. But we're going to build around him. He's a young guy. We're going to get an experienced head coach. We're going to keep Brian Flores way the hell away from him. We're going to prop him up. We're going to believe in him, and we're going to win the Super Bowl.
Wow. Petey.
Toad, I like how you talked about the rookie contracts. Here we go again with where are we going to save money so we can make the ballpark better? Let's
actually in my defense, the cheap quarterback helps you build the team to win. It does. Okay?
Yeah, we haven't had that in a little while. But Mac looked good in Jacksonville, so all right. I mean, to me, this was kind of a no-brainer. I am going, and I just talked about this guy, the LeBron James of baseball. I'm talking about like Auburn type Cam Newton quarterback here, Aaron Judge. Okay.
Ooh.
I want Judge getting the ball here, Toad, right? And it's a straight option quarterback. Like I want him holding that ball in that belly for as long as he can and watching it develop, Toad. And then like if this gentleman is taking the ball, good luck. What is he, 6'3"? I think he's 265, 270, and can obviously move, freak athlete. I mean, he's running over linebackers. He's fast enough and athletic enough to break away in the secondary. And he's got an absolute cannon. And it can, I mean, I don't know. I don't understand. Like Bobby Witt, like that's awesome, man. Johnny Manziel was cool too. Like I get it. Like it was fun to watch those guys back in the day. But like, dude, give me a freak of nature athletically and just let him go back there and go to work.
And again with the Yankees stuff. Wait till Brady hears about this, man.
Well, we don't mind Judge though, because I just feel like he's such a good dude too, man. Like,
Hard
you
to
know what I
hate.
mean? He is. He's very hard to hate. He's very hard to hate.
I am going with the best athlete in baseball, two-way superstar Shohei Ohtani. Now,
Are you going to let him play defense too?
my apprehension with taking Shohei Ohtani was obviously a language barrier. How's he going to be in the huddle? We're going to have only signals.
Outside of betting on NFL football, what experience does Shohei have with the sport?
Dude, I don't want to know, but if you give Shohei the pigskin and a couple weeks to prepare, I firmly believe that Shohei Ohtani could be a quarterback in the NFL.
Is he tough enough?
Come on, dude.
Are you kidding? Like, can he take the hits?
Do you want to find out? 6'4", 245.
He can't even. This is a bad pick. He can't even throw the football right now. He's coming back from.
We're gonna take a gap year. We're not gonna have him this year.
Oh, we're gonna sit him behind the starter.
Okay. We're gonna sit him behind Jacoby Brissett.
I knew you were gonna say Brissett, dude. I knew you were gonna say Brissett. Bullshit.
I didn't even know Brissett was back on the Patriots.
Oh yeah.
Hey, don't count out the Japanese learning style, okay? Those guys learn everything when they have to, man. Very disciplined, very rigorous. He'll be in the lab, in the film room, studying extracurriculars I don't know about. Give me Shohei, first overall pick.
Is he mean enough, Javi?
Does it matter, dude?
Yeah,
mean enough. Yeah. He threw his best friend under the bus, buddy. he's mean enough.
We love you, Shohei. Come on the Mafia, dude. We
are a pro
Shohei podcast.
Yeah.
On the other side of this, guys, that's gonna do it all. For the first half of this episode, we have Jacob Barnes, good buddy of Petey's in mine. Obviously, he is a former Milwaukee Brewer teammate. Gives us a really candid interview about just his journey in the major leagues. Been up in the show for parts of 9 seasons now. Crazy journey last year. Really great episode. We talk about all sorts of stuff. Make sure you stay tuned. While we still have you here, check out our website for merch. Like and subscribe on YouTube, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever possible. Podcast addicts, we're on Toad, right? We're everywhere. We are everywhere. So we hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you haven't gotten the chance, check out some of our previous episodes, especially the one with Dontrell Willis. All right, boys, stay tuned for Jacob Barnes.
We got a former Milwaukee Brewer teammate of ours, another big part of our, baseball story. One of the best. My personal first roommate in the minor leagues, Washington National right-handed pitcher, reliever extraordinaire, Jacob Barnes. Barnesy, thanks so much for joining the Mafia, man.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm excited about this.
Javi, let me just give the folks at home here just a quick little background on Barnes. I mean, I don't know if you guys just saw that. Barnes, he kind of straightened himself up a little bit. This guy is built like an absolute brick shithouse, guys. All right? Barnes is always the type of guy to me, Javi, like when he looked at the weights, like the weights started rolling and he just got Jack looking at him. But I mean, look at those arms on there, folks. It's a good thing we're on YouTube here, so people are gonna look at this.
Barnesy, your baseball reference page has some nicknames for you that we gotta ask you, bro. Like, who's calling you caveman, bro?
So in college, when I was a freshman, we had like Halloween parties throughout college, and all the guys called me Tarzan, and they made me wear the costume, all that. Freshman.
There ain't no costume to Tarzan, buddy.
Bro, he just literally went shirtless to the parties.
Exactly. So there wasn't much to that costume, but that's what they made me wear. And so they used to they still have it, but the Players Weekend where you had a nickname or whatever. And a guy named Jason Chager, who's with the Brewers as their equipment guy, was like, hey, what do you want to, be and whatever? And I was like, I don't care. Call me whatever. And he's like, well, you can't just do Barnesy or anything like that. He's like, come up with something different. I said, well, in like college, they would call me Tarzan all the time. And he goes, okay. And so he submitted it. And then MLB, like all of a sudden, not just me, but like a bunch of people, they realized, copyright infringement, all that kind of stuff.
Hilarious.
Movies and all that kind of stuff. And so like they had issues with that early on. So he's like, you can't do that. You got to do something else. I said, dude, I don't care. Just pick something similar if you want. And so he just picked Caveman. So that's how that. I think I know where you're about to go next. But.
What do you got, Javi?
You tell me. Where am I supposed to go, Mark?
Spill the tea, baby.
There's another one that I changed it to because like I was like, no one really calls me Caveman. And I think it was 2018 or 2019. I forgot which year it was, but they were coming around again, like, hey, do you want to be called Caveman? I was like, no. They're like, okay, in the next couple of days, like, come back to us with something else. And I was trying to think of something that was like different. And I was talking to my brother, and he was like, hey, he's like, you guys got that Players Weekend thing coming up, huh? I go, yeah. He goes, remember in college what I called you? I'm like, no. He's like, remember, because I went to Florida Gulf Coast, but we played USF, which was right down the road from me. I grew up in St. Petersburg, and it was in Tampa. And so he's like, remember my buddies, when you were playing them? I was like, I mean, yeah. Remember you guys were yelling stuff? And he's like, yeah, remember the name? I was like, no. He's like, King Cobra. He's like, get it on a jersey. I want it. I was like, all right, I'll do it. The only time I've ever been called that was the USF game, and they were hammered drunk. Like three or four buddies were just hammered drunk.
Yeah.
I was striking out a bunch of people that game, and so like they're like up there like going like this, like and like
that's so awesome.
So that was the most recent nickname that I put on the jersey. So that's why on the reference page you see a couple of those.
Petey, you imagine someone international just tuning into a MLB TV package? Right. They put on Barnesy's coming in the game, and this gentleman's running in there with King Cobra on the back. Like, we put on a WWE match, or what are we watching?
Hey, Nationals Park. Everybody's like this in the stands when he's coming in, dude. That is so awesome.
One more question on physique. We had Taylor Scott on.
Oh yeah, this is a good one.
He was one of our first guests. And Scott. Scott is South African by nature, loves to be this, super athletic, run around with his shirt off, but he's a more slender figure than you are. He's touting his body fat percentage. We're doing a ranking, man. Who has the lowest body fat percentage of all the relievers? Because it was never going to be me.
Sure as shit ain't me either.
It ain't me.
Bro, when they put that thing on me, Javi, like the guy's like, hey man, I don't think we can go that deep in there.
I would always sneeze to make sure I had to do it over. Like, I'll pick another spot.
Yeah. I'd be trying to be as cold as possible, bro. Get that skin tightening.
So Barnesy, what's the body fat? What body fat percentage at right now?
Currently, I don't know exactly right now. I would say throughout the career, it's been probably anywhere from like 7 to 11.
Oh,
is probably what it is. In college,
Javi, the last time you and I was 7 to 11 was probably at birth, dude.
I came out of the womb.
Yeah,
probably not either.
It was bad when I was in college, and I didn't work out until I got to college. But the first year, my freshman year, I was like 200 pounds, something like that, going into college. And by the end of it, I was 240.
Wow. Are you serious, dude?
Oh, dude, I got absolutely just ripped. I was like better. So like I was just getting under, and I was naturally kind of like strong in the first place, but like I would just get under and just start repping out stuff. And we were doing like, we had kind of a wild pitching coach at the time, but we'd do like 2-hour circuits of just getting after it straight for 2 hours. It was obviously not great for you, back at it now, but like, yeah, I got to 240 and I was like 5.5% body fat.
Jesus.
Did Chris Sale skip those workouts or what, Barnes?
What?
Did Chris Sale skip those circuits or what?
Yeah, he did. Because he was there, but
yeah,
he like his own. He does like a lot of band work and like tendons.
Yeah,
so like, but he would like be at the workout, but he wouldn't throw a lot of weight on there. He would do like, if you're squatting, he'd throw maybe like 35s on each side and do a couple.
Yeah.
He wasn't worried about throwing a weight around. He just
Chris got to show up on Friday night, make sure that slider's working.
Literally, yes.
We got a chance, boys.
Hey,
Imagine that against college hitters. Whew.
no.
Good.
Hey, it's funny too, Javi. I'm just laughing thinking about like you asking Barnes, like thinking about going back to those physicals, man. I remember like you'd go into that the off season, you come back in, you'd be like, dude, I'm in the best shape I've ever been in my life. I'm gonna what a season I'm about to have. You go in there, the guy be like, all right, hey, you're at like 23% body fat. That's like up from 5. I'm like, dude, I didn't have a carb all year. They're like, oh yeah, and you're pre-diabetic and you got high cholesterol. And I'm like, dude, what? Like,
come back tomorrow at 5 a.m.
Literally,
Your coffee intake. Remember they told you,
hey,
hey,
Barnes, yeah, literally. They'll be like, buddy, your blood pressure, like a lot of these things, like what's going on? Like, oh, I had a cup of I had like 3 cold brews already this morning. They're like, well, we told you to fast, and it, like your EKG looks like you're about to go through the machine. So let's relax a little bit here.
Oh man, what's funny is the people don't realize you show up to spring training and that first day, right? Everyone's taking physicals. The most intimidating day in spring training because you haven't seen dudes in 3.5, 4 months.
Yep.
Some guys take their shirts off. You're like, that guy hasn't worked out a lot. But then you look to your right and you're like, holy crap, that guy, we're both going to AA next year.
Yeah, literally.
I don't look like that. You know what I mean? That's what happened when you looked at Barnes, dude.
Dude, you looked at Barnes, he looks like he ate the weight room. You look at me, it's like, is that a bag of milk, dude? Is that like what is that thing you got going on over there, dude?
Oh,
wow.
Man. Made a few trips to Dunkin',
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh man. So Barnes, we talked about the Brewers, man. I think, something we love to do with our guests. Obviously you made your debut in 2016, the major leagues with the Brewers. Walk us through your call-up story. I think that's one of the, Petey and I being career minor leaguers, man. One of the things we always love to hear about is, number one, friends of ours who made it. Number two, friends of ours who have had long careers like yours, 9 years in the big leagues. But walk us through that first call-up moment, call to your family, friends. What was that like?
Yeah, it was awesome. Going back to it, that was, thinking it was a pretty wild year for me. Honestly, a couple weeks before my call up, my stepdad, who was pretty much my dad, who raised me my whole life, passed away. So I was actually away from the team for a while. And then I came back and I had been pitching well already. Like I was pitching really well actually at that time. And then I had to leave for about a week and a half, 2 weeks when, he passed and stuff. And so then I got back and I was like, okay, I got to get back on it, restart, get, the rhythm and all that kind of stuff. And luckily I kind of got back on it and kept pitching well. And then about 2 weeks after I got back, I kind of heard some people talking about like they were needing to make some moves because a couple of the guys up in the big leagues were struggling, but I didn't think it was going to be because there was a couple other guys on the 40-man, and I was like, they won't call me up yet. Like, there's no need to. They were kind of rebuilding, all that kind of stuff. So I thought they'd wait. And we got back to Colorado Springs, and we're just in the middle of kind of like pregame stuff. And Rick Sweet was the manager there, and I think he's still there now. And he's like, hey, Barnes, you come in here real quick. And I just kind of figured he was like kind of checking up on me because, I just had some family stuff. And honestly, my first daughter was born like probably 2 weeks before that or something. It was around that time. Yeah. So like I had obviously extreme things going on. And so I thought he was just kind of checking up on me, and he brings me in, and I walk in, and it's him and a couple assistants and some like rovers that we had. And I kind of sat there. I was like, wait, okay, maybe they're all checking on me. Like I didn't really think about it. And then he's like, hey man, like been thinking about you a lot lately, all this kind of stuff. And he's like, but what I really want to tell you is like, you've earned this. He's like, and you've earned going to the big leagues tomorrow. And wow. I lost it. It's kind of, obviously it's what you play for, and, you dream of it. And obviously kind of that emotional time with everything else happening, just lost it. And, immediately obviously called my mom, and then sister, brother, all that kind of stuff. And they, my mom couldn't make it up because my mom's disabled, so she couldn't fly up. But my sister, brother, all them shot up the next day. We're in Philly.
Wow.
They, I had a group about like 7 or 8 people that were able to fly up last minute, and debuted, I think, the second game of that series.
That's awesome.
What a place to debut, dude. Talk about
right?
going right the snake pit, the king cobra in the snake pit, baby.
Before my debut, I'm like sitting there, and they're Philly fans. You know, they get on some people for sure. And so I'm like I'm about to warm up, and we had Lee Tunnell, who was our bullpen coach at the time.
Yeah.
And, a lot of the bullpen coaches have to kind of keep the crowd like, you know, acting right kind of thing, because they get pretty aggressive. And I start warming up, and next thing you know, I see like beer spilled. I'm like, what is this? I kind of look up, and a guy's just like messing around, like, you know, he was probably kind of drunk and just spilling stuff. And I'm like, well, that's not good. I'm about to go in a major league game, like I can't have beer spilled on me. So I'm like, do they get him moved? Next thing you know, I hit like a piece of hot dog gets thrown at me. Like, what are we doing here? Like, this is crazy. But luckily, when I went in, I had a really good inning, and it was nice to kind of have that as the debut. So,
Barney, what was that like? What was that inning like? Like, what was that feeling like? You finally taking the mound out there in Philly, all that shit's happening in the bullpen, and then all of a sudden, like, you got to go in there in Philly, big league stadium for the first time. What was that like?
It was incredible. Like, you're always told like not to look at the levels and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And Philly's a big stadium too, so of course, like an idiot, because you have to go down the stairs. Like, Philly is like steep. It's a stacked bullpen, so you have to go from the top, and you have to go all the way down. Then you have to pass their bullpen.
Yeah.
Well, of course, like an idiot. As soon as I get to the gate, I look up. I'm like, oh, well, this place is huge. Like, here we go. You know, it's not like the stadiums we were at that time.
Yeah. So, that's all me and Javi know. We just know like the single decks, you know.
Look at what? What
Yeah, looking up. Yeah, looking up. I saw
skyline.
Exactly.
So it was like, oh man, I was like, all right, just come on, let's go. So I just kind of obviously sprinted in, and it helped because the first batter I faced, I struck him out on like 4 pitches.
You remember who it was?
Yeah, it was at the time he was their first baseman. I think 4-hole guy. I think Caleb Joseph.
Okay.
Name. He was supposed to take over for Ryan Howard at the time. That was like right when Howard was kind of struggling at the time, at the end of his career, and then this guy was like swinging. Yeah, he was, kind of was supposed to go that route, and so he was the first batter, and then I think it was Drupal Cabrera. I think maybe a lefty, right? Lefty.
Yeah.
Was he? Yeah, I can't remember. I
would have to go back on who's next, but the next guy struck out the first guy. Next guy was a lefty and swung at the first pitch and grounded out like softly to first. I was like,
God, what a feeling! Yeah, this is easy.
Yeah, I was like,
I could have been doing this for years.
Out, and then I punched. The next guy out on 4 pitches too, and I'm like,
wow,
all right, like
big leagues. Yeah, my ass.
Of course. Yeah. Like that, not that, but it was I couldn't have asked for a better debut and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that was a pretty cool moment.
Barnesy, you pitched to some really different roles those first couple of years, right, in Milwaukee. The really good bullpens. I think first of all, that's where the Brewers sort of made their way those couple of years. I think we talked about from 16 to even till today. The strength of that team is the bullpen, right? But you're right in the thick of it. You're pitching big time innings. What was it like from the day you showed up to sort of, the point of maturation where like, I found my role, I found my niche? What was that? Who did you lean on in that bullpen? Whose brains were you picking sort of day in and day out to sort of get to that point?
Yeah. So my first year in 16 started off just like any, guy that comes up for the first time. They kind of kept me in that, up by 5, down by a couple, like kind of thing. A lot of times you would go multiple innings, or at least a 1+ kind of thing, just because they kind of wanted to save the 7, 8, 9 guys, or how some teams have more than 3, but they wanted to kind of save those guys for when they needed it. So I was doing that, but then I started pitching really well, and so after the first couple outings when I was pitching well, they started sliding me to more just 1 inning, to where I could go like back to back more often and different things like that. And I pitched well again for the next month or 2. And then by the last month, we just got the trade deadline was gone. And then we traded Will Smith, the lefty, who was having an unbelievable year. We traded him. And then we traded a guy named Jeremy Jeffers, who was having a great year as well. And they were pretty much our 8, 9 guys.
Yep.
So then when they left, I slid to the back. So I was throwing like the 7th, occasionally 8th inning. We also had Knable was there, so he kind of slid into the closer role at the, or like setup guy, different things like that. So we all kind of slid back. So yeah, by the end of the year, I actually got a save in Colorado. My first ever attempt was in Colorado with the last game of the year. And I'm like, oh man, like this place, you got to watch yourself because of all
literally. Yeah.
So, I got the save. And so obviously went in the off season in a good situation, finished that year through well all around. And then 17 going into it, they kind of had me throwing a lot. I think in 17, I threw in 73 games or something like that around there. And it was kind of Knable and I as like the 7-8 inning guy. So
you're on pace for this year too, Barnesy.
I know.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where I did that for pretty much 17 and 18, and then 19 didn't quite have it, and then that role I came into camp. There was some injury stuff that we had going on that year. I think I talked to Petey about it before, but kind of had that. Wasn't really healthy. First game of the season struggled, then started pitching well, and then it was in the hip, and that acted up a lot to where the velo went from like averaging like 97 to like 91, 90, and it was a big drop. And so 19 was my last year in Milwaukee. And that year was kind of more like just a grind of trying to get through the season and getting, the body right again and all that kind of stuff. So, so that was my tenure with Milwaukee.
I'll tell you what, Barnesy, the late inning stuff, the multiple innings, it has you ready for today's game, though, huh? Doesn't it? I feel like, you and I, we talked in May when you came to Fenway, and I feel like at that point, you guys were kind of excited to be there because you were in a role where you guys were throwing a ton. The bullpen was being used a lot. We talked about you got 42 appearances, including today. We laugh. You're probably on pace for another 70, like you said before, but it seems to me like that's where the game's going a little bit, right? Like you guys, you got a good bullpen over there. You got some guys that you rely on in certain parts of the game. Like, do you see it kind of trending in that direction a little bit more where, relievers are sort of, like, hey, we know we can get 2 or 3 out of Barnes and we want to use them in this spot. So let's get to him. Even if it's early in the game, let's just get him in there and sort of let him do his thing. Do you kind of see that trending in that direction throughout the game, especially with you guys?
Yeah. I think that's a few years ago, I think it really started becoming a thing around the whole league. I honestly think it kind of started back, with like the Kansas City teams, like the Royals back, if you remember when they won the World Series and, they went back-to-back World Series, but they won one of them. I think if you look at like how they were built, they were kind of built for starters to kind of keep them in it through 5-ish. And then they had just their bullpen was just stacked. And I think a lot of teams started kind of looking at that and trying to figure out if, why that worked so well. Obviously they had an incredible bullpen,
right?
But I think that's when teams started kind of looking into that idea of like, maybe we can do that. And then now with the analytics in the game and how everything's just pretty much number based. There's some teams that are still a little bit old school when it comes to that, but a lot of times now, if like the numbers say not to do it, they're not going to do it. So
right.
A lot of the younger starting pitchers pretty much come up and they're like, hey, once they get to the third time around the order, we're going to take our chance on the bullpen facing that meat of the order instead of having them go back around, the third time, compared to maybe the veterans that are still in the game. Like, obviously they're unbelievable pitchers, but like a Scherzer or like,
right.
On our team, we have Patrick Corbin, who's played for 13 or pitched for 13 years. And like, he's a guy that they like, they're okay with letting him get to the, 100 pitch mark and stuff like that, for it seems like. So, but you see that all around the league. I think with younger pitchers, you kind of have to, I think, earn your stripes with it, and they make you kind of show that you can do it first.
Right.
But I think it's the way the game's gone. And I think they're just trying to limit guys from that third time around, or, if they have guys that they trust in the bullpen, I think they just are, as soon as they can, they try to get to them and play that game.
Barnesy, that just means you got to drink your coffee a little bit earlier, right? I mean, Barnesy's pouring that black coffee. It's the second inning. You got to get that strong company.
Yeah. Oh, I got the coffee in hand at all times.
You guys got Dunkin' down there, Barnes? Here, what are you guys drinking over there in DC?
No, there's no Dunkin' in the clubhouse here. They a couple morning, like when we have day games like that, they bring in a little barista and
wow, Petey, awesome. We never got a barista in the minors, but Jonah was making a black pot of coffee. But
dude, imagine having a barista. Like we were, dude, like the coffee. You were lucky if you got like a bean in the bottom of your cup that made the water brown. Like you might have got a speck of energy because that was the coffee we were drinking back then, dude.
Oh man,
Folgers probably the tin can, dude. They throw one scoop in that thing, that'd be it.
Barista, dude. Talking about it. Oh
my Javi, one scoop of the Folgers, bro, had to last you all year, so you better just get a little bit because you got 160 games you're playing. So
yeah, so this is honestly the first place that's actually done that, which is was pretty cool. They kind of had the idea. They're like, hey, we want to change it up. We know it's not needed because they have good coffee, but they're like, hey, change it up. We'll bring someone in to make different types of drinks, all that kind of stuff, and it is a nice change of pace because we didn't have it all year, but. Some of the clubhouse guys, and then like today, one of the players paid for it, like all that kind of stuff. So, I think it's just a way to kind of change it up, and we all love coffee. I mean,
yes, we do.
It's just so we all enjoy it, and when in doubt, even if he's not here, there's a few other options around, like cold brew and all that kind of stuff. So we're good with the coffees.
That's awesome.
Barnesy, you mentioned some of the other stops along the way. And I think obviously you check out your Baseball Reference page, man. I think one of the testament to your career is resilience and perseverance, right? I think obviously you had first couple of years with Milwaukee, started off great. You mentioned 2019, obviously you're dealing with some injuries and probably not the performance you expected of yourself, especially after those first couple of years.
Yep.
Walk us through what it's like. Obviously you have the stuff, you have the ability to pitch at this level, but no one understands how difficult it is to bounce around, right? Like you were living out of a suitcase for the majority of the last.
Barnesy, could you mind if I interrupt? I know where Javi's going. I'm going to let him ask this question afterward, but we would not be doing this justice if I did not run down this laundry list, dude.
Oh, dude, go ahead.
But like I was looking, like when we were doing all this stuff earlier, putting together this episode, man, everybody who was around me, my son had a baseball game earlier tonight. If you were around me, you know who Jacob Barnes played for. Because I'm like saying this to be like, oh, can you imagine this list? All right, here we go. I'm gonna hit this. I want everybody listening to this. Ready? Kansas City Royals, Anaheim Angels, New York Mets, Toronto Blue Jays, Detroit Tigers, Seattle Mariners, back to Detroit, round 2.
Yep. Yankees,
Rangers, Phillies, Cardinals, and last but certainly not least, your Washington Nationals. Dude, that is incredible, Barnes.
Yeah. So
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No. I'm just saying, dude, Immaculate Grid, Jacob Barnes is your guy on the grid. Immaculate Grid, Jacob Barnes is your guy.
Yes. It's funny. Everyone always says that. They're like, yeah, we threw you in there. I'm like, you probably got a good score. Huh?
Good score.
100%. Yeah. Javi, go ahead. Well, Javi, I know where you're going. It's a perfect question, man, because it rings true, and this is the testament of the guy right here. So yeah, go ahead.
No, I just think for people that listen, they have this notion of baseball players, and no one really understands the wear and tear on, first of all, you, second of all, your family, and moving around so much. Walk us through those years, Barnesy, in terms of how did you sort of stay mentally involved? How did you stay mentally engaged? I think that's the most important and the most difficult part.
Did you ever unpack, Barnes?
Dude, in 20 so last year I did not, pretty much.
I bet. Yeah.
I'll run it down. So in 20 when I had the injury, some stuff was with that, but by the time I got injured, I was in AAA.
Okay.
They sent me down or whatever, and then I tried to throw twice, and I just couldn't. So then I was like, guys, I'm still hurt. I need to go on the IL. I can't do this. I gotta get this right. So I rehabbed there for, I don't know exactly how long, but maybe 2 months or so. And then when I was coming back, they designated me. So right when I made my first outing and I was good, they designated me. And then I was claimed the next day by the Royals. Luckily, the Royals were great. Their training staff was awesome. They got me on track to be healthy again. So it was the perfect thing for me. I needed it, like, because I didn't know. I had never been hurt before.
Right.
So it was a blessing when it came to that. Couldn't perform, but they pretty much brought me in and said, hey, if you want to get it right, we can start now. But your performance might still struggle because you're going to pretty much fatiguing something that, is not where it needs to be right now. And, there's some issues with it. So, we can get it going, but it's going to be extra workload on there. So your performance is going to probably still suffer. And I said, fine, I'll play for next year, but like, I need to get this right. So I did finish out in Kansas City. The next year signed with Anaheim. Come the spring, shove in spring. Then COVID hit. Go back home. I'm like, man, like, oh, this is tough. I would have broke with the team. This and that.
Yeah.
Here's another month and a half to like where I have to, make sure I'm locked in. And luckily, it was another thing that was great for me because it gave me another month and a half to get it right as far as the hip and all that kind of stuff. So got back, broke with the team because I went back for their spring training point, like part 2, as they called it, and pitched really well. Broke with the team, finished there. The next year that Anaheim cleared house with like all their front office people, they let me go. I go through with New York with the Mets. Mm-hmm. I'm there for a couple months, whatever it is, 2 months, whatever. It ended up getting traded over to Toronto.
Yep.
Finished there.
But that's when you guys were playing in Buffalo too, right?
Buffalo, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Insane.
So had to go there. So living out of a suitcase, that ended up being, because every week they were like, we're not too sure, this and that. Right. Like you can't, like we're all living in a hotel pretty much.
Right. What a nightmare,
dude. Yeah, like because they didn't know when the border and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So, so living out of a suitcase that year. When I went over to Buffalo, my wife was only there for a little bit with our kid. And so like they were there for the most part, which was great. But then eventually we were kind of going back and forth for so long that they went home. So that was tough. And then 22, I break with the Tigers. Well, my wife was pregnant with our youngest at the time. And so I'm going through the season, start off really well. And as kind of the way it works nowadays with relievers, if you have like a bad stretch of like 3 or 4 games, you're out. Like that's just, the reality of how, a lot of teams kind of go with guys that come in. Obviously, if you're a younger guy, they'll, they can option you in different things. But nowadays, if you're like a, free agent sign or someone that they don't have come up through the system, if you have a bad stretch of 3 or 4 games, you're pretty much the guy out. And so I started out really well. I was kind of honestly throwing leverage of like 6th to 7th, like 6th and 7th inning, mainly, occasionally 8th, but mainly 6th and 7th of close games. And then I had a bad stretch at the very end of it, and got let go. Well, I had a contract there. And so I was like, okay, well, my wife's pregnant. I don't want to miss out on it. So I'm going to go home. So, I was about to go home, and then Seattle called and they said, hey,
it's unbelievable, man.
You're our guy.
Yeah. They're like,
your back's
where
still
have you been our whole lives? Yes.
Yeah. They're like, hey, we want you to come here, like this and that. And so whatever, there's obviously more to it, but they're like, yeah, like, let's go. And I said, okay. Like, I was like, hey, I want to really get this pitch down. Cause at the time I was kind of just trying to tweak a bigger slider at the time. And, I went there and I got to their AAA, and I was there for like a week and a half. And things were kind of heading the right direction. We were kind of getting where we needed to get to. And I was feeling good because I was now back at the place that when I was throwing well, I was like, okay, now we're cruising a little bit. Well, they had someone go on, I forgot what happened. Maybe someone else was having a kid or something, and they were gone for 3 days. I can't remember what the move was, but they randomly one night they call and they're like, hey, you're going up tomorrow to the big leagues. I'm like, okay, cool. I later found out, obviously, it was they needed someone to cover 3 days. So I literally went up there and I didn't pitch, and then they designated me, and then they wanted me to stay there. And at the time, like I said, my wife was due in like 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm like, no. Like, I got to go home. Like, I signed here because I was going to do this, but like at this point, I'm not going to go back and forth. And like, I couldn't do it at the time. My wife's pregnant. So I go home. I'm home for about a month. My wife ends up being about a week late. So I'm just hanging out. I'm like, dang,
come on.
Right?
I'm like, this is.
I wonder if my slider's still good.
Month is a while.
That's a long time, dude.
Yeah, and I'm like, okay, I got to get back. So that's why I signed back with Detroit, because I was like, they've seen me when I was good. If I just throw well, whatever. Well, I threw really well. Like I don't know how many punches I had, but I was like throwing really well there. And they pretty much, because I had an out coming up, and we called their GM or front office people, and we're like, hey, are you considering bringing them up? And they're like, we'd like to, but we're trying to rebuild or whatever, all that kind of stuff. And which made sense. Like, that year I think they just switched to a new GM and all that kind of stuff. And so I then left, opted out, and the Yankees called, and I was like, okay, they're winning. Yeah. Cool. End up finishing up there the last 4 games or whatever it was, 3 games. And then the next year signed with Texas, shoved in camp. Certain things happened where they needed long guys instead of all the different things. Didn't break with them. Was throwing really well in AAA. Had an out coming up. I wasn't going to get called up because they were throwing really well as starters, so they didn't really need a pin guy. Go over to Phillies because they're trying to win. They were, last year they were really good. So I was like, oh, they're winning. Like, let me go there and hopefully pitch well. I had 3 weeks after that, and I was like, okay, because I know they had kind of their guys. Took the out there. St. Louis calls like, hey, come here. We're going to trade some people. And I'm like,
it's unbelievable, man.
At that point, I'm throwing well in AAA. I'm like, I need to get back to the big leagues. I can't just keep sitting in AAA. So that's when I was like opted out of that contract, and then I signed with St. Louis and finished up with St. Louis. But yeah, that was a struggle, because that's when you kind of bounce around, because like you're performing, but there's just not room for you. And that's where you had in this game, like you got to find your way, or else you get pushed out. And so
right.
I'll tell you what, Petey, Barnes' agent might be the hardest working man in America in 2022 and 2023.
Yo, you know who's the happiest guy in America? Barnes. Every one of these teams is calling and saying, hey, buddy, where you been? Like, we need you. Barnes like, yeah, well, can you guys give me a couple weeks? Like, I'm trying to have a kid here. Like, I'm trying to work on the slider. And guys like, no, we need you now.
Yeah. And so it's one of those things, but the longer you play, that's your one leverage in this game, is the opt-outs. Once you get past the options and all that kind of stuff, as a player, if you're performing well, that's your only leverage. And if you can, we've all been there, you can get stuck behind people. Yeah. And as long as they're doing okay, they're not going to make moves just to make moves. So, I got lucky that I was able to kind of just get opt-outs in certain times, and it wasn't ideal as far as moving around, but the ultimate goal is to be up in the big league. So, I kind of had to make those moves, and it was tough last year. Moving around that much was brutal. I was you start mentally, fighting. You're like, okay, do I want to do this anymore? I've done it for a while. Is it worth it anymore? And so,
it says a lot about you though, Barnes. You know what I mean? And I think I've always felt that way about you as a teammate and a person, man. That just goes to show you, how hard you worked, how reliable of a guy you are, man. And obviously good in the clubhouse, and a guy that, guys, when you become available, man, and you get the opportunities to go and do that. It's so impressive. That list is literally incredible. I keep on looking at it because I can't believe it. Barnes, I'm following along as your name of the teams. I'm like, yeah, you got it. Yep. Oh, no. Oh yeah, you got that one. Okay. Yeah.
Hey, Barnes, you missed one.
Yeah, exactly. This is longer than the list Colleen gives me to go to the grocery store. This thing's unbelievable on here, man.
I'll tell you what though, Petey. One thing that I think that list also goes to show about Barnes is self-belief, right? I think Barnes, you had those opt-outs for a reason, and I think you could have easily continued pitching well in AAA for any of those clubs you mentioned, but the fact that you had the sort of North Star, hey, I'm a big leaguer, I know I'm a big leaguer, and you belong, right? So, and I think that you proved that this year, right? You're pitching well with the Nats. You're having, we talked about it at length. You're pitching, the workload is there. You're pitching on a team that, by all intents and accounts, is superseding expectations, right? You're on a very young ball club, a club that is definitely on the rise, an organization that made a massive trade 2.5 years ago, trading Juan Soto, sort of changing the course of their franchise. So, Barnesy, we've been on for over 30 minutes, man, but I think, give us a Nationals, put us in the Nationals clubhouse, help us understand what that team is like right now, especially you being a 9-year veteran of the game, coming into a team that's, on the younger side of things. You're in a new city, moved around again, your family's with you, but what's the outlook for the Nationals the rest of the way?
Yeah, a lot of talent there. Probably a few of the big names that people talk about all the time. James Wood, who just got brought up this year, big outfielder, really good plate discipline. I think he's 21, maybe 22 now. Good plate discipline, just natural power. As long as he keeps progressing, like I think everyone assumes he will. Like just watching him every day, he could be a superstar. Abrams at shortstop, I think he went to the All-Star game this year. If he kind of keeps going and turning up, and he could be another absolute superstar in the league. So those two have the ability, not just to be good, but to be like the top names in the game, kind of thing. Those two are high ability guys. I know that they have a young catcher, Ruiz, who they locked up a while. And Finnegan's been there in the pen for a few years. They have a lot of young starters.
They got a journeyman named Jake Barnes up there.
They Cobra, baby.
Yeah. King Cobra.
They have a few. Derek Law's having a great year for them this year. Another kind of guy that was, I guess the journeyman. He's been with a few teams now, but he's having an incredible year this year. And I think he has one more year of control, if I can remember right. But I think the biggest thing with this team is, we'll beat the best teams in the game. It's just being consistent. And I think that's kind of with the young teams is always the big issue. Yeah. Can you keep doing it day in, day out? And I think that'll be the big test for this team is, if we can get it to where we're consistent throughout the year. Because for a while, and honestly, when I saw Petey earlier in the year, we were playing well. We were, I think, game playoffs at that time. And that's the biggest thing with this team is getting consistent and having the guys that have the, elite ability to reach those possibilities. Because if a lot of the guys, the young guys, starting pitchers, Abrams, Wood, all those guys, if they can get to their potential, dude, it's going to be a scary team. It could be similar to like the 2019 when you look at kind of like how their roster was built when they won the World Series. You look back at young Trey Turner, all those guys, you can be like, okay, there's the ability there. So I think that's the biggest thing. Like when you watch the Nats is kind of, the ability and what could be, if people keep progressing, the way they need to be.
You heard it here first, baby. Yeah. The Nats on the rise. Nats on the rise. So we've had this unbelievable talk, and I think this is a special interview for Petey and I, just because we know the caliber of human being that Jacob Barnes is, man. Aside from being, a big leaguer, aside from having a 9-year career, something that not a lot of people can say they have done and played at the level you have for as long as you have, Barnesy. Better human being somehow. But if for all our listeners, you heard it here first, man. Jacob Barnes is in the lead in the clubhouse, body fat percentage. Took over for Taylor Scott. We're happy to say that because we love to give Scott some trouble. But Barnesy, you're going to be on a lot more people's Immaculate Grid, man. I think you have a tremendous baseball journey. Obviously, the last 9 years, and given what we've seen this year, man, I think you got some great years ahead of you, and we're always rooting for you. We're proud of you, man. We tell everybody that comes on with us, we bring you on for a reason, man. You always have a home with the Mafia. So thanks so much for joining us today, Barnesy.
Oh, thanks for having me, fellas. I appreciate it.